At the beginning of the flight, he demanded a white pilot and sat down arrogantly. However, what the captain revealed at the end left him trembling in front of everyone. Graham Saunders entered the busy airport terminal, gripping the leather handle of his sleek suitcase. The hum of voices, the rolling of luggage, and the occasional loudspeaker announcement irritated him. He was not a man who appreciated delays, and the rescheduled flight had already thrown off his meticulously planned day. He made his way to the check-in counter, his demeanor radiating impatience. When it was finally his turn, he stepped forward briskly. "Saunders, Flight 817, first class," he said, sliding his ID across the counter. His tone was clipped, almost demanding. The agent smiled politely. "Yes, Mr. Saunders. Boarding will commence in about 40 minutes. Graham's jaw tightened. "It's already delayed. 40 minutes more." He exhaled sharply, grabbed his boarding pass, and stalked off toward security. At gate D23, Graham's eyes scanned the scene, taking in families with noisy children, casually dressed travelers, and businesspeople engrossed in their phones. Then his gaze landed on the flight crew. His expression hardened when he saw Captain Liam Monroe, a poised black woman in full uniform, standing with her co-pilot Carlos Martinez, who appeared to be Latino. They were reviewing their pre-flight tablets and chatting quietly. Graham stopped in his tracks, his chest tightening. "Unbelievable," he muttered under his breath. He marched to the gate agent. "Excuse me," he said sharply. "Are those the pilots?" The young gate agent, Mark, looked up startled. "Yes, sir. Captain Monroe and First Officer Martinez." "Is there an issue?" Graham's voice lowered, but it carried an edge. "I'm not comfortable with that. I'd like a different crew." Mark blinked. "Sir, Captain Monroe is one of our most experienced pilots, with over 12 years of service. I assure you you're in good hands." Graham's tone turned colder. "I said I want a different pilot." Before Mark could respond, a calm, firm voice cut through the air. "Is there a problem here?" Graham turned to see Captain Monroe herself standing a few feet away. She was tall, her uniform impeccable, her expression composed but unyielding. "I don't feel safe flying with this crew," Graham said, meeting her gaze defiantly. Leah's voice remained steady. "Sir, this is your assigned crew. If you're uncomfortable, you are welcome to rebook with another airline." Passengers nearby began to notice the exchange, their murmurs a low hum in the background. Graham's face flushed under their stares, but he refused to back down. "I paid for this ticket," he said, his voice rising slightly. "I expect certain standards." Leah's eyes didn't waver. "And you will receive them. My team and I are fully prepared to ensure a safe flight. The choice is yours. Board or don't." For a moment Graham hesitated. The weight of the onlookers' judgment pressed on him. Finally he exhaled sharply. "Fine, I'll board." Leah gave a single nod. "Thank you." Without another word, Graham strode toward the jet bridge, ignoring the murmurs behind him. Inside the plane, Graham settled into his plush first-class seat, fastening his seat belt with an annoyed tug. He glanced toward the cockpit door, still seething. He ordered water curtly from the flight attendant, brushing off her attempt at polite conversation. As the plane taxied onto the runway, the captain's voice came over the intercom. "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Captain Monroe. We're preparing for takeoff and expect a smooth flight to Chicago. Thank you for choosing Airlink." Her voice was calm and professional, but to Graham it grated. He shifted uncomfortably, gripping the armrest as the plane accelerated down the runway. Once airborne, the flight settled into its routine. Passengers around him relaxed, chatting or watching movies. Graham, however, remained tense, his eyes darting toward the cockpit door as if expecting it to burst open with bad news. Then the turbulence began. It started with a slight bump, barely noticeable, but enough to make Graham sit up straighter. A second bump followed, harder this time. The fasten seatbelt sign dinged on, and Captain Monroe's voice returned. Ladies and gentlemen, we're encountering some turbulence. Please remain seated with your seat belts fastened. Her tone was steady, but Graham's distrust flared. He glanced around. Most passengers complied without concern, some even chuckling nervously. The woman seated beside him adjusted her seatbelt calmly. "It's just turbulence," she said, noticing Graham's rigid posture. "Planes are built for this." Graham scoffed. "You think this is normal?" He shrugged. "I've flown through worse." The plane jolted again, harder this time. Drinks rattled in their cups, and a few passengers gasped. Graham's heart pounded, his fear beginning to creep in. He muttered under his breath, "She's not qualified for this." His seatmate's expression darkened. "Excuse me." "The captain," Graham said, his voice low but tense. "She's in over her head." The woman stared at him for a long moment, disbelief flickering across her face. "You're seriously blaming her for turbulence? You don't think she's capable because—" "Why?" Graham didn't answer, but the accusation hung heavy in the air. The turbulence eventually subsided, and the rest of the flight passed without incident. Graham remained stiff and silent, refusing to meet the glances of those around him. When the plane landed smoothly in Chicago, there was a light smattering of applause from the passengers. Graham stayed seated, his jaw tight, as Captain Monroe's voice came on once more. "Thank you for flying with Airline. We hope you have a pleasant day." As passengers disembarked, Captain Monroe stood near the cockpit, thanking them. Graham hesitated as he approached her. His chest tightened, his throat dry. When he reached her, he muttered stiffly, "Good flight." Leah met his eyes, her expression calm but piercing. "Thank you, sir. Have a good day." That evening, alone in his hotel room, Graham couldn't shake the day's events. Captain Monroe's composure, the turbulence, and the way she'd handled everything haunted him. He opened his laptop and began typing an email to Captain Monroe. "I owe you an apology. I questioned your abilities without reason and let my assumptions cloud my judgment. Today you proved beyond a doubt that you're not just capable but exceptional. Thank you for your professionalism and for ensuring a safe flight." He hesitated, then hit send. The next morning, Graham's phone buzzed with a reply. He opened it, his heart pounding. "Mr. Saunders, thank you for your message. It's not always easy to confront our biases, and I appreciate your effort to do so. My job is to ensure the safety of all passengers, regardless of how they perceive me. I'm glad we could reach our destination safely. I hope this experience leads to greater understanding. Best regards, Captain Liam Monroe." Graham read the email twice, her words sinking in. For the first time in years, he felt something shift within him. Change wouldn't be easy, but it was necessary, and it had to start with him.